David, we have about 10 minutes left in our agenda for the day. It's been a good day, very productive, lots of great talks. And David, you've prepared a few slides and a talk. Shots on goal, ultra rare. What are we going to do? How can we look forward to finding treatments for EHE? So I'll leave it to you. So we're going to let David wrap up the day.
All right, if you can hang around long enough to confirm that this is showing up and looks like it's in the correct format.
You're good.
All
Thank
right,
you.
let me make sure the slides change. Does that change?
Yep, yep,
All
you're
right,
good.
I'll finish this off in these last 10 minutes. So I want to kind of build off of the optimism we heard from Dr. Rubin early on. Um, and we're going to be talking about sort of all the different options that are out there for treatment of EHE and other cancers and what this might look like in the future and how sort of everyone listening today can sort of help make this process better. And just a little bit about me. So I am currently a patent attorney, but I started off as a biochemistry researcher. So I've got a biochemistry research background. As a patent attorney, I work with healthcare companies in all areas of diagnostics and therapeutics, and I do a lot of work with cancer companies. And one of the things my job lets me do is it lets me see hundreds and hundreds of different examples of things that work and don't work. And I get to work with some of the best people in the world and learn how they think about these problems. And so I've been really lucky in my life to have this exposure to see what works and what doesn't. And I wanted to give some big picture insight into what we're seeing now and build on this optimism because for decades, I've been really interested in cancer. And for those same decades, I've been very pessimistic about timelines. And that's all changed, I think, in the last 5 or so years. There's been so many advances, and this is cancer in general and EHE as well. There's reasons to be optimistic that we're getting close and that we can actually see the end of the story. And I want to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like. As a side note, I am associated with a cancer therapeutics company myself. It's not specifically focused on EHE, but it does have a technology that might work on EHE. We'll find that out in the future, and maybe in a future conference, I'll be able to present on that as a scientist. We'll see. And then I am on the board of directors of the EHE Foundation, which is why I am presenting at this conference and the MC on this conference. A couple quick disclaimers. This is the lawyer hat that I wear. I'm not a world expert on these scientific topics, so everything I say may not be perfectly correct. And there are many experts on these conferences who can do a better job of answering specific questions than I can. And I'm going to be talking about drugs and therapies and approaches, but I always consult with your own physician. We're not giving any medical advice here. All right, so let's talk about what the ultimate goal might look like sometime in the future. And we don't know when, and it's hopefully sooner rather than later, but imagine the day where a child comes into a doctor's office with a lump on their arm, and the doctor says, I need 1 drop of blood, and you get a little finger prick, and the doctor collects that drop of blood and steps out of the office for 5 minutes to run a test and comes back with the test result 5 minutes later saying, you have a rare type of cancer called EHE. So we got a 5-minute diagnosis. And then at this point in the hopefully near future, we've got a cure. And the doctor says, I'm going to give you a quick shot to take care of this. Come back in 3 months and we'll confirm that it's gone. This is the goal we're reaching for here. And it seems magical and it seems like a dream to be there, but I can actually see the steps now that would get us to this point. This really dream scenario where you get the 5-minute doctor's office visit and a single shot and the disease is gone is going to be more often in the future. But I think we can see pathways where this could happen now. And I don't think that was clear 10 or 20 years ago. And the way we're going to get here ultimately is what I consider multiple shots on goal. There's lots of different approaches being taken, and eventually one of them is going to work. And maybe it'll work a little bit, maybe it'll work a lot, maybe it'll do the whole thing. We don't know which of these shots is going to be the one that does the job. And so we basically have to take a lot of shots. And some of them are going to miss, like the little hockey player on the top here. Some might get really, really lucky where early on someone's taking a shot from a long distance and it scores a goal. And we surprisingly advance, in what we thought would be 5 years of work is done in a month. Odds are that won't happen, but it could happen. Some of the shots that are likely to cause the ultimate goal and the ultimate success are going to be passes. We're going to learn something where someone passes the information to the next person and they get more information, and then they pass to the next person who actually shoots the winning goal. That's probably the route this is most likely going to take. And then as part of this process, some people are going to take some shots that just go in the opposite direction. Some people may pass off a shot to someone else and it doesn't score a goal. But we have to get lots of shots on goal to get the one that eventually makes the goal. And so we probably get there in stages. And what are those stages? What might those stages look like? They're going to be things like we're seeing now, where maybe we're going to find ways to perhaps differentiate between aggressive cancer and indolent cancer. And ultimately, we might have tests that tell us when someone who is indolent is going to become aggressive, so that we can sort of get the right treatment going as early as possible. We're going to see treatments that maybe start by managing symptoms better, and then perhaps slowing growth and then eventually preventing it, or slowing or preventing spread. Ultimately, we may see treatments that keep the cancer indolent indefinitely. It may still be around, and it'll just be a chronic disease that gets treated for decades and decades and decades, and you have it when you're 105 years old and you eventually die, but it's not the cancer that got you. And then, for some of these things, we'll probably see it work for some patients, but not all patients. But eventually, the goal will be that it works for nearly all patients, and perhaps all. And so what are the shots that we're taking, or that are going to be taken in the future here, that might get us to that dream goal? So some of the shots are, creating information and tools that are needed to discover and evaluate the eventual treatments that will work. These are the things we've been hearing about today. Animal models for EHE, EHE cell lines, including patient-derived ones. And we heard, I think this is the first time we've ever presented at a conference that there's actually success on that front. The biobank work. You can't have those cell lines without people donating tissues. And the patient registry, which we really haven't talked about today, but is super valuable. This is where patients can go on and put in their personal medical information into a record, so that all of that information can be collected and sorted out to figure out what drugs are working for what patients, what other information in your profile suggests that a certain treatment might work or not. This is the type of information, especially for rare diseases, that lets us move to the goal a lot more quickly. So I encourage everyone who is willing and able to participate in the registry to help accelerate the process. Some of the shots on goal are going to be related to diagnosing and monitoring disease. Some of these are already out there. So we have molecular tests now to confirm and identify EHE. We have imaging technologies that can see the tumors. Obviously improvements on those are going to make things better in the future. We're starting to see early research suggesting that we've got biomarkers for aggressiveness or indolence, so we know when we can just watch and wait and when we need to start treatment. That's not sort of on the market yet, but that research is happening, and we heard about some of that today. In the future, we might have molecular tests that tell us if a therapy is being effective or not, and we might have molecular tests that tell us which drug among options is going to work best for a particular patient. Those don't exist yet, but those are the types of things people are going to be working on and we might expect in the near future. Let's talk about treatment. Some of the shots on goal are going to be looking at removing or destroying the tumor. All of it or part of it. So some of these approaches exist today, like surgery. And if your tumor is in your liver, removing the liver perhaps is a way to remove the tumor. We're seeing ablation technologies come on board, and these are essentially technologies where some type of energy is put in and destroys the tumor without necessarily doing direct surgery, where people are being opened up. I mean, there's usually a probe that goes in to do this. With ultrasound, it might just be energy through the body going to the tumor. There's lots of different versions of this: radio frequency and microwave, cryo, in which case the tumor is being frozen. Irreversible electroporation is an approach. I think we're going to hear a little bit about that tomorrow. And there's a new technology on board called histotripsy. Recently got FDA approved, and I believe some EHE patients were involved in those clinical trials. Those involve ultrasound technology to destroy the tumor. Other approaches: killing the cancer or controlling the cancer. So there's general approaches like radiation and chemotherapy that might impact large areas of the body, or even potentially localized areas, but are not necessarily specific for a particular cancer type, or are not. And then we have targeted approaches, and these are things that maybe aren't affecting all cells or all areas of the body, but are specifically targeting the tumors or cancer cells specifically, or at least at a higher degree than other tissues. And we've heard about some of these today, like mTOR inhibitors, like sirolimus. There's other categories that have been used for EHE patients, like tyrosine kinase inhibitors. And we just heard about TEAD inhibitors, which are in clinical trials, not on the market yet for EHE patients, but in clinical trials and showing some early positive results. We've got other approaches that I would say are very early stage for EHE and may or may not work for EHE, but there's an exciting area used in cancer more generally called immunotherapy. And essentially what this is trying to do is mimic a situation that we've observed for many years with many cancers, which is that some patients go spontaneously into a remission, perhaps with no treatment at all. In some of those patients, we know that that occurs because their immune systems kick in and they recognize the cancer as an enemy, and your immune system just takes out your cancer. And that can just happen spontaneously in some people. It's very rare. But there's lots of technologies now that are basically causing the body to do that intentionally, either by putting in artificial immune systems into people's bodies or inducing the body's immune system to do it on its own. There's lots of different approaches on this in development. I won't go into the details here because a lot of these are more futuristic, but there are some early studies on immune checkpoint inhibitors, one type of immunotherapy for EHE. Sarcomas and EHE historically have been thought about as a type of cancer that is not as responsive to immune approaches, but there are potential ways that some of these immunotherapies may work. And there's some next generation technologies out there that potentially can turn these cold tumors, these tumors that don't work well for immunotherapy, into hot tumors, which means tumors that might not otherwise respond to immunotherapy might be able to be turned into tumors that do. And the company I work with has a technology that works along those lines. The future, what might it look like? We might see genetic therapies. We know that EHE is caused by gene fusions, and there may be direct ways of targeting those gene fusions as a therapeutic approach. We're seeing a lot of exciting development in artificial intelligence assisted drug design. Nothing that I'm aware of for EHE right now, but it's been amazing what computational power can do to make drugs work better for certain types of diseases, or take drugs that don't work well or that have toxicities and make them work better and not have toxicities. This is a dramatic new area we're going to see a lot of success with in the upcoming years. Nanotechnologies, putting little things in your body to go find and kill the cancer cells or identify them, or in terms of like metastasis, preventing them from moving from one area to another. We're going to see lots of developments with combination therapies, things that might work a little bit combined with other things might work really, really well. And we're going to see a lot of optimization of current things. And again, things that work a little bit might be turned into things that work really, really well. And so there are some challenges, and we see a lot of different approaches being used here. None of them is necessarily the best approach. They all have their pros and cons. A lot of these targeted approaches are really exciting because they potentially are more effective. But for drugs that aren't already approved by the FDA, if they're really focused on rare diseases, it's oftentimes hard to find the money to get them through commercial development, get them through the regulatory process. So there's a lot of business and financial challenges with them, even though technologically they might be very exciting. Some of the more general approaches that work on a lot of cancers, don't have those issues, but at least historically, they've not been super efficacious for EHE patients. And if they work, they may work on some, but not others. So there's limitations there. Drug repurposing, we've heard about today, is an exciting area where we take drugs that have already gone through the cost of regulatory approval and perhaps are already on the market, and they can be rediscovered or discovered to work for EHE. And if they're already approved, doctors could keep using, could start using them right now on an EHE. So we've got efforts on those fronts as well. They don't have the cost barriers, or as many of the cost barriers, there's still some. The big downside there is there's more limited shots on goal there. But at the end of the day, I think the big question is, how do we get to that goal, or approach that goal, get to the steps to that goal as fast and effectively as possible? And from everything I've seen, the things I can say that would help are, a huge part of this is multiple people working together. It's patients, their families and friends, healthcare workers, researchers, organizations and institutes all working together. There's not an army of people working to fight EHE because it is a rare disease. And so everyone who is involved in the process is going to be really important. And the more people we can bring into the process, the better chance we have to get more shots on goal and have some of those shots be successful. And we need these people working together to collect and share information. And I'll say, working in other areas of cancer, the amount of sharing with EHE is almost unprecedented. And I think part of this is, no one's going to get rich treating EHE. That's just a reality with a rare disease. And the downside of that is there's less funding for the research. The upside is there's less people being secretive about it because they want to hide their information to get rich with it. We're seeing tremendous sharing and collaboration with the EHE community, and that's going to help us get there a lot more quickly. We need people to have creative ideas and share them. That ultimate goal is probably someone's really clever idea, and the more we can all know about that early on and help out with it, the better. Fundraising and effective spending is going to be a really critical portion here. All of these shots on goals cost money, and the more money we can raise, the more shots there are. And just as an example of that, the Giving Tuesday this last year for EHE raised over $180,000. And if you look at the grant funding the EHE Foundation spent for the previous year, it was about $300,000, and that funded 3 projects, 3 shots on goal. So just a single event like Giving Tuesday is essentially brought in enough money to fund 2 of those 3 shots on goal, which is amazing, right? One event, we get 2 more shots on goal, and it's just going to take one of those shots to win the day at the end of the day. Advocacy is important. We've got a small community. We have to use loud voices to get as many people to hear what we need as possible. We need agencies like the FDA to respond to us in ways different than they're going to respond to the big cancers where there's gigantic clinical trials and they're used to seeing studies of a certain type. We need them to respond to our smaller studies in different ways. We need the fundraising. We need more scientists involved, and the louder we can be, the better that's going to happen. And we need to recruit and retain the best people and talent in all areas: fundraising, leadership, advocacy, research. All of those things need as much help as possible, and different people bring different talents. And this last bullet point, I think, really gets to that, which is we need to help each other be our best. We're a small group. A lot of us are under stress because of disease or losses from friends and families, and we need to boost each other because every bit of the talent we bring to the table needs to be used in every way possible. And I will conclude it there. Thank you for joining the conference today, and we'll hope to see many of you tomorrow, and let's get those shots on goal.